Good evening, world, and welcome to another episode of A24 on the Rocks, your favorite podcast and mine. You know, the one where a group of drinking buddies get together to drink beverages of various alcoholic content and discuss films of varying A24 content. The podcast where we watch every single movie in the A24 library in chronological order. The one where we sometimes have unique and knowledgeable guests who bring their life experiences and movie love to our group of movie-reviewing misfits. Yes, that's the one. A24 on the Rocks. I am your host, Kevin Kanon, and tonight we are discussing the 2018 A24 film, Mid90s, written and directed by Jonah Hill in his directorial debut. It is the 15th and final film in the 2018 A24 film year that has featured some A24 classics such as First Reformed, Hereditary, and 8th Grade. It is the 75th A24 film that we've reviewed, which puts us closer to the halfway point. There are over 165 individual movies, so we still have some time to go. But I'm not alone. Nope. I brought my movie-loving drinking buddies with me. And we have a special guest. But before we introduce our mystery co-host, let's get into the people you do know and love. It's Eric, Kelly, and Cole. Say hello to the people and tell them what you're drinking for this review.
Hello. I'm drinking what all skaters drank in the 90s, and that's a nice Pinot Grigio from California. So
I thought it was Pinot Grigio.
Yeah. Kelly, what are you drinking?
Oh, here's the thing. I live in the same house as you, Eric, so I, too, am drinking 7-Eleven's best Trojan Horse Pinot Grigio. Nice. Cole, what are you drinking?
It's Cole William Gibson. Tonight I am drinking Rolling Rock 4-grain whiskey from Union Horse Distilling. I don't think any skaters are drinking this, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, probably not.
40s.
You never know. But without further ado, it is time for me to introduce to you the fifth voice for this evening's affair. It appears that we have found our very own resident, authentic 90s skater kid to join us and share his perspective on this nostalgia slice of life film. Kyle is the brother of our dear friend and co-host, Kelly, and she tells me that she wanted him to be on this episode to share his thoughts and opinions on the reality of being a skater kid from the 90s. Kyle is also a former professional Magic the Gathering player, metalhead, music store owner, and all-around badass. So, Kyle, welcome. Say hi to the people and tell the world what you are drinking as we dive into this movie.
Man, what an intro, man. Thank you for that. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm Kyle. I'm totally not here because of nepotism or anything like that. I'm a true expert of the 90s. And I grabbed this Old Smoky Tennessee whiskey, salted caramel. Nice, smooth, easy. I'm not a big drinker anymore. I've hit 40 years old, so something simple sounded great for tonight.
I mean, absolutely. That's all that we need. Now I have to pause and wait for your little... Anyway, and before I forget, because that's what tends to happen towards the end of these episodes, I'm drinking whiskey. Big surprise. Yep, I don't have a 90s-inspired whiskey, so I guess I'm just going to drink a 90s soda. Got some Sprite, mix it with some rye. Now I just got a poor man's whiskey sour. But hey, I don't think skaters would be drinking it anyway, either, but if they were, it'd be pretty delicious. It's, Cole and I, is one of our favorites, High West Double Rye. Quite delicious.
Oh, yeah.
And very easy to drink. All right, and away we go.
A24 on the Rocks.
What is y'all's experience with this film? First time watching it? Were you aware of it before getting into this episode? Kiska's you up first, Kyle, and then Cole.
Yep, we both seen it before we watched it together, and I guess this was pretty well known when it came out in 2018, at least in like the indie film circle. And I mean, a lot of people also knew it because it was Jonah Hill's directorial debut, and I think everybody knows Jonah Hill from Superbad and Wolf of Wall Street, so and many other films. But yeah, I definitely I was tuned into it right when it came out, and I don't think I saw it in theaters, but I saw it shortly after it came to streaming.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember why Eric and I did watch it, and I think at the time it was before Jonah Hill's fall from grace. So we still kind of liked him and was interested in what he was going to put out. And I think he made a really good movie. So I was interested in what he was going to do as his like debut. And I'm curious if he'll make a movie again. I don't think that he was canceled so hard that he's gone forever. That was probably the reason that we turned it on in the first place, but I can't truly remember.
Kyle, same question to you. What was your kind of awareness of this film before Kelly asked you to jump on and watch it for this podcast?
So I follow some skater YouTube channels, and they had mentioned that this was being made years ago, and I absolutely forgot about it, never saw it, never thought about it ever again until Kelly mentioned, hey, we're going to do this podcast, and it's about a movie in the 90s and a relatable kind of thing for you. So I was pretty pumped that this is what we're reviewing, and so when I went, got it on Prime, watched it, first time I thought about it in like since it probably came out, so yeah.
So were you aware of Jonah Hill's association with the film at all before?
Not at all.
This?
That was a pretty big surprise. I didn't know he ever directed a movie, much less the one we're going to watch. And but the fact that they real skaters, that was a big deal to a lot of skaters. They all were like pumped about that. So
for a little bit of your background knowledge, I don't like movies. Well, I didn't like movies before I started this podcast. Didn't know about movies, didn't follow movies, didn't care. It, wasn't a my deal. So for me, same thing. I started watching this film, and all of a sudden it says written and directed by Jonah Hill. I'm like, what the hell? Like, I had no idea before I clicked play on this film that Jonah Hill was involved, let alone was the one. And that's why it's so cool in your guys' perspective. Like, no, you knew about it, you watched it because you were fans of Jonah Hill at the time. And I'm interested to hear now what Cole has to say because, basically Kyle and I are on one side, you guys are on the other. Cole, what was your awareness of mid-90s going into this episode?
Yeah, so I'm a big slice of life guy, and I was also a big Jonah Hill fan. So when I heard that he was doing his directorial debut and it was going to be kind of like a slice of life from his childhood, I was all in. I did not see it in theaters, but I saw it as soon as it got like a digital release, and I've watched it I think 3 times now. So this was my 3rd time watching it.
All right.
I won't tell you what I think about it yet. But.
Yeah, well, no, we got to save that. But for our audience, let's go ahead and set the stage, right? Mid-90s is a coming-of-age slice-of-life film that's focused on our protagonist, Stevie, a 13-year-old boy navigating the streets of Los Angeles in the 1990s. So let's go ahead and talk about some of our initial thoughts on the film's overall premise and its nostalgic appeal. Did you feel a sense of nostalgia right off the bat in the opening scenes as Stevie kind of explores his brother's room and just our opening scenes? Kyle, let's talk about that right away. What was your sense of nostalgia as we open up this film?
They were definitely pulling on the nostalgia just with the imagery. Just the brother's room looked like my room. The CDs lined up that they showed, the Ninja Turtle sheets. Like, absolutely, that is for my generation of guys because that's what we all did and loved. So
replace the rap with with metal, though, for you, right?
Sure, yeah. I didn't do the rap too much, but I knew it, and all my friends listened to it, especially the guys that skated, always had rap going just for the beat, but I never bought in. But, that's a big 90s kick in the face all through this movie, running in the background of it.
Expand on that a little bit. So you said just for the beat. So something about the hip-hop beat itself allows skating, let's say because you're kicking and pushing, you're going through the motion, it allows you to feel more creative with that actual driving beat behind it?
It's a rhythm kind of
cool.
thing. It's a nice, steady beat that you could kind of count to in the background of everything you're doing on a skateboard. And I think, I skated better listening to things like Slayer, where it's metal and it's aggressive and it's getting me excited. But I totally didn't hate some of the hip-hop that guys listen to. I loved the Beastie Boys. I like ICP, which is real hot take, but I had fun with that kind of music on.
They've come back around in respect. I feel like everybody respects them now. At the time, it was more,
100%.
At least early 2000s.
I would absolutely go
joke,
to the Gathering of the Juggalos now in 2024. I would absolutely go.
Yeah, I would too.
For those listening out there, we can do a gathering of the A24, gathering of the Juggalos. Let's go ahead and do it. All right. Anyway, let's talk about nostalgia again. Kiska, anything from you guys as far as the nostalgia beats right off the bat? Cole, same question to you. I just want to know what your vibe was as we kind of opened up right off. Wasn't it super intentional? Did you feel like Jonah Hill was being like, hey, I need you to put you in this right away? And just kind of where was that vibe as we got this film started?
Oh, yeah, very intentional. They put in a 4:3 aspect ratio, and then they literally had like film grain I don't know if it was part of the film because they shot on film, but they at least added film grain into the film, and then they shot on specifically 90s type film, and they made it look like a 90s film, except it was still like more high definition. I'm guessing they shot it like on a type of camera that you would shoot with in the 90s, and then they upscaled it after they shot the whole thing. But either way, like Jonah Hill was very purposeful with how he shot this movie, and also the feel of the movie, like all the tracking shots showing the skateboarders, like tracking shot showing them like rolling with them as they skateboard and everything. I think the way he shot this was very intentional in making you feel like it was from the 90s, definitely.
And the fact that they put you in there right away, right? It's the first, immediately you're dropped into this world. I mean, obviously with a title like Mid90s, your brain is already expecting yourself to be in that space, but he doesn't disappoint, right? He, all those things and more for sure. Kelly or Cole, anything you want to throw in and just kind of what you were feeling on the nostalgia bits before we move on?
The fact that the Big Brother's room is at the end of the hallway and they kind of light it with this kind of green light. Kyle's room was literally at the end of the hallway when I was a kid, and his whole room was green. So that had a little something going on in my mind. Meanwhile, in the mid-90s, I'm
That's
like
wild.
6 years old or something,
That's
and
funny.
younger. But the
That's
end
wild.
of the hallway, like Big Brother, like bedroom that you want to explore and like glean insights off of, that was something that I found a little bit relatable. I appreciated that. And how precious is he sitting there writing down every single disc or track or whatever that his brother has so that he can get him something new. I think that was so cute.
So our opening scene, it basically is literally Sonny being thrown into the wall by his older brother Ian. Why do we start with this? Why do we go with this jarring act of violence? Why do we get this, relationship? Like, why start here? Kyle?
Man, as a not movie expert, I don't know. But boy, does it set the tone for uncomfortable, hard to watch 2 minutes of a kid being beaten with no music, no sound. I hated it. I did not enjoy it one bit. I was like so ready to move on and see like, good God, is this whole movie gonna make me feel like this? Because it's ugly, it's nasty, it's violent, and it's to a child. Man, what a way. That was jarring.
Yeah, jarring to say the very least. Anybody else want to expound on kind of their thoughts on that's how the very first thing that we're introduced to?
It's very what we've been used to with A24 movies, where we are presented with kind of graphic depictions of violence and trauma and all of these kind of things happening in the home. It establishes the fact that these kids that get together, they all come from troubled homes, and it is like really difficult to watch. And there's many aspects of this movie where they use the loss of sound to just make it hit home that much harder. I hate to say that I've kind of, after seeing, 75 of these A24 movies, not that all of them cover these kind of topics, we see some crazy stuff in movies, so I get a little desensitized where when this does happen, I'm like, yeah, it's the A24 twist, and there's going to be more of them throughout the movie. So I know that they're coming, but it isn't less hard to watch, but to me it is expected. I know they're doing it because it's like, his family life is not okay, so why does all of the rest of the things that are going to happen in this movie end up happening?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the key point that you brought up there, is that we need to know about the family life right away. That's the whole idea, is that if we're about to go on this adventure, if we're about to see where Sonny goes, we need to have an idea of what he's running away from, and I think that was really apparent. Kelly, you had mentioned a little bit about the sound there. Cole, did you take any notice of the sound editing, specifically between the difference between the way that they edited the slaps and the hits to be right in your face, directly in your ears, and then right away the next scene was the mom and Ian arguing behind walls, and it was super muffled and you couldn't hear anything else? And for me, it was just really juxtaposed, like it was really intentional for one way, and then you get other sounds of trauma right behind it. Did you take any note of the sound editing in general, or even in these early scenes?
Yeah, I think Jonah Hill does a very good job of using like sound and sights to really establish the emotion that he was going through, because this is kind of a story from his, I guess, childhood in a sense, right? And, everyone I think has had their parents arguing, and you always hear it in the muffled room, and you always I always got like the anxiety from that, and it just like spilled over when I was watching that, and you could just hear them arguing in the other room. Granted, it was a older brother and the mother fighting, but you kind of hear that muffledness where you don't want to hear what's happening, but you also want to hear, and that kind of drives you crazy. And then with the quick cuts and the smacks, and then the lack of music or the use of music throughout builds some really good tension, but also just develops the emotion of the scene. And for Jonah Hill, for it being his first movie, and I did he ever do another one? I don't know if he ever has done a second film, directorial.
I don't think he directed another one, no.
Yeah, but man, he's definitely got a knack for it. Either he had a lot of really strong characters around him that supported him, or he just has a talent for it. But they did a very good job. It was filmed on 16 millimeter, and they did it in 35 days. And the fact that they did it on actual film and in 35 days just blows my mind. So
with a bunch of non-actors and people who've never been around film or skating before.
Yeah, and they used all like natural lighting and everything, like super low budget and just done extremely well. But I think that also lend to the whole vibe of like the 4:3 aspect and the filmy grain, and like it feels like it belongs on a VHS, and it takes me back to the CRT days where I'm popping in a VHS to watch
Hell yeah.
some movie.
I mean, honestly, it feels like a skate video, which is we'll get to that
100%.
whole giant algorithm, or not algorithm, but allegory. But yeah, that's what it feels like, and it's wonderful. Before we move out of the house and we get onto the streets of LA, I don't want to move past this because I feel like it's really important. We don't get a ton of screen time for Ian. Right? We get very small amounts of time where he's interacting with his brother. He's not a major focus, but I feel like his character really, to me, is a really big deal. We get this vibe that Stevie idolizes the ever-living shit out of Ian. Like, he is his, right away, like, he is, like, revered to me. Did anyone else get that feeling, Kyle? Did you kind of get that idea that there was this particular reverence that Stevie had for his brother? Even though he's just got his ass beat, he's still, like, minusculely making sure that the shirt doesn't fall off the hanger or the barbell's exactly in the right spot, that nothing gets moved. Maybe he's scared of getting beaten again, but I really think it's something about the way he loves his brother in a weird way. Can you just expound upon that at all? What your thoughts were when you were seeing that?
Yeah, for sure. Like the next scene where he's writing down the info to get him the right present, something he didn't have, and his brother just tosses it aside. It's like, after watching him beat the crap out of his brother, not in a brotherly way, but like a violent beating kind of way, his brother still looks up to him, still thinks he's the essence of cool, because he has no other outlet for what cool is. And then the whole movie is him kind of finding that out. But in the beginning, you don't know that. And they just set you up to, like, hate his brother. You're like, God, I hate this kid. And then they'll use that against you later. But, man.
Damn straight. They will, exactly. They will use that against you later, which I think is brilliant.
And I think because there's no dad in the house, that's a big thing. And we kind of figure that out right away. And I feel like they started the movie with this beating to kind of show the toxic masculinity of the older brother, and how also, like, since there is no dad in the house, the youngest child only has the older brother really to look up to in terms of a male figure. And that's a huge part of both their characters, but definitely the younger brother's character too, is like, he's the only one he can look up to at this age too, and he beats the shit out of him. So that, definitely affects him to the point where he self-harms too, because I think violence is, what he knows within his own house. So,
Kelly, anything you wanted to throw in there on the kind of what we see from the admiration from Sonny to his older brother?
Yeah, I think you guys already nailed it on the head. I think there's an absence of, like, even just any kind of parental figure of any kind of sorts. I don't know how much mom is even stepping up. It sounds like she's kind of got this revolving door of suitors at the birthday for the older brother's 18th birthday. She's kind of just talking about her relationship problems. It doesn't sound like there is a parental figure in their life, so you're left to your own devices for what that could possibly mean. And I think that they do a good job of showing, in the vacuum of that happening and the anger that older brother experiences with his experience with a young mom, what that becomes of just, he leans on his own rage and then what that then becomes with the younger brother only looking up to the rage of the older brother. They do all of that and are able to show all of that without telling us. And that's what a movie's about, show not tell. And I'm able to pick all that up pretty succinctly right there in the beginning. So it really establishes what this like home life is like for them right there at the beginning.
100%. Say no more. That's exactly what I wanted, because we move on feeling equipped to kind of know what our characters are about to go into a little bit as Stevie kind of goes on to the next scene. So our next pivotal scene, we're introduced to one of the main backdrops, sceneries for our film, and that's the skate shop. Stevie walks into a local skateboard shop called Fun Palace. I mean, I'd like to hang out at a place called Fun Palace, right? That sounds like a good play. The space is filled with cool older kids. Here's Stevie introduced to Ray, played by Nikel Smith, a skater who becomes his mentor figure, and other characters like Fuck Shit, played by Olan Prenat, and Fourth Grade by Ryder McLaurin. So what does this shop represent for Stevie? What are some of the initial kind of scenes that we see from him? What are kind of your thoughts as we get that idea that he's watching from the clothing rack as his future friends might debate some risque life questions? Kyle, did you ever hang out at a skate shop like that?
This is right where I was going to go with this, because we had a place here in Flint called Empire of One.
Okay.
We also had Captive Sports, which was another great place, but that was more family-friendly. Empire of One was the cool skate shop. They had the half pipe inside. Bands would play there. Neurosis played there. And this is like a apartment-sized room. I couldn't believe it. And the cool kids there, were older than me. I was only ever there with my dad, walking me in there and walking me out of there, because I was smart enough to know what those guys were doing in there. It wasn't just skating. But yeah, that's what, I saw the way they dressed. I saw they were much better skaters than I ever was. And I just was like, man, I want to be that cool. It guided a lot of my style, and it fueled the want in me. I have a competitive edge, so wanting to learn new tricks was enough to push me, but I also wanted to fit in with those kind of cool kids, because they would have tournaments, they would have all kinds of just videos being made out of that little spot, and it was like a little nothing hole in the wall. It's gone now, but yeah, it reminded me very much of that, and I was the stupid little kid who was just peeking at them, it was cool.
That's brilliant. So this is really, really relevant to you, and kind of seeing that scene, you could kind of put yourself in,
Yeah, I tried to do a lot of that. Now, mind you, so much that happens in this movie, absolutely not like my upbringing whatsoever.
Sure.
But yeah, all the nostalgia hit points and the way they showed skater culture, and how much is accepting versus just how much you feel like you're an outsider. Because that is how it is. If you're in, you're a brother, and if you're out, you have no idea how to get in. And that's definitely, even in our small town, even in Flint, it was kind of felt that way.
That's crazy. Eric, have you ever been in a position where you're viewing life from across the street like Stevie was, where you were on the outside looking in on something?
Yeah. I mean, I don't need to go into specifics.
No, I don't. Yeah. I just want to be
Throughout
you
my
can,
life,
but you
I've
can
probably done
empathize.
that,
You can empathize with the character. You can put yourself in that situation.
Totally.
Same question to you, Cole. Same thing to Kelly. Just put yourself in that spot. You've been there, right? You felt that. You know kind of what that feeling might feel like.
Yeah, I've been an outsider my whole life, Kevin. Come on.
I'm always on the inside,
serious, sir.
Whoa, yeah, I've always been looking over and just seeing Kelly having all the fun, and I'm just
That's right.
God damn it, every time.
Well, yeah, elementary school too. It's if you're not one of the cool kids, you're certainly looking at all of them, because you have, at that time you have no perception of oh hey, I shouldn't be staring at these people right now. So
yeah,
back then,
if you're the fastest kid on the playground, you're the coolest kid,
Yeah.
All right.
So that kid had soaps, and he was grinding, down the slide and everything, and you're like, I want soaps, and then you ask your parents for soaps, and they tell you, no, you can't get soaps. You don't have good enough grades, and then I don't have soaps, and for a whole year, I'm just really jealous of all the kids that have soaps.
Man, terrible life. Yeah. But it's honestly what we felt like probably back then. We couldn't have dealt with it anymore.
Sorry that happened to you, Eric.
That was not about me.
Oh, sorry. Of course not. Anyway, I didn't even know where I was going to go with this. Oh, yeah, before we leave the skateboard scene, I don't feel like graphically asking the same questions that these kids were asking them in the film. You can go back and watch it if you want to ask that question.
I was really afraid you might.
No, but I basically want to know how accurate do you feel like, not that question specifically, but the way that you put yourself on a fly on the wall of a bunch of teenagers hanging around with nobody else? Did Jonah Hill do a good job of capturing what a conversation might be like? A bunch of dudes without phones, without internet, without the technology that we all now have to distract us. A bunch of kids in the 90s just bullshitting. Did he do a good job of capturing that? Kyle?
I'm 50-50 on that. I mean, yeah, we talk real gross, real terrible, real inappropriate, but I thought a lot of the conversations were just kind of weird and like not how a normal kid would talk, you know, when he's like, don't say thank you makes you this, and don't say that, don't do this. It was such a weird way for that kid, 4th grade, to come at him, and didn't feel natural at all. But then, of course, that kid was not an actor, so he was just delivering those lines real matter-of-factly. But yeah, the dialogue, yeah, for sure. The F word that they're throwing around, very 90s word. It was like the word. Korn has a whole song called it. We don't say it now. But my God, everything was that except an actual gay person. It meant everything but the word it offends, you know, now. And so that, for sure, you could see he wanted to throw that back to the 90s, and it's right, but I don't know how good it was. I didn't feel like I ever spoke like these kids.
Sure. Yeah, it's very clear that Jonah Hill's pretty unapologetic about this, right? He's like, this is the reality of what it was like. Maybe specifically for him, true, because he grew up in LA at the time, so like it could have been, you know, what he was seeing.
Sure, it is. California is going to be way different than my 90s experience. You know what I mean?
100%. So, same question, I guess. Did you guys feel like it was necessary? Did you feel like Jonah Hill did a good job? Was it tactful? Not just in this scene, but just in general. The use of kind of some of the slang, some of the urban speak, just the way that it was so naturally conversation, but it's not something that we would speak about, especially today in 2024. So does that make this a timepiece? Kind of just speak on that a little bit. Eric, you first.
Yeah, it definitely like captured how I feel like how inappropriate kids were back in the 90s. I mean, I know that like maybe they go a little far with that question, like it's a weird question, but I do feel like kids would pose each other really strange questions, like kind of would you rather type questions, and that would be the reality of, you know, like what's the most fucked up thing I can say right now? Let me say it. And I mean, that followed it with watching South Park and listening to Eminem. You know, like you just get all this fucked up shit in your head, and then you are just gonna say the most offensive things all the time. And yeah,
I thought it was really like the way that 4th grade just like, I feel weird now. Like he's just after he asked the question, he was just kind of
Can we just pretend none of this
well,
happened?
You know,
right?
That kid like just telling him, oh, like don't say that. You know, like
Ruben.
they're gonna think you're
That's
gay.
the name. Ruben.
Yeah,
is
don't
the
say
character.
thank you. They're gonna think you're gay. I mean, at that point, I felt like he was putting a hierarchy like in the group or whatever, and he wanted to make sure that, you know, the kid lowest on the totem pole like wouldn't replace him in the hierarchy.
There.
But at the same time, he was trying to school him a little bit, and it was a weird thing that definitely there was some like toxic masculinity involved there too, where it's just like we have this set hierarchy in our group, and you have the alpha male and blah 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 blah, and I feel like that is very pervasive in this film, and they show that a lot actually.
Yeah, no, I agree, 100%. All right, so the next couple scenes we are treated to is basically Stevie's first experience in skateboarding. He's just trying to fit in. He's faced with some pretty heavy life choices, and they all seem to revolve around this idea of fitting in with his new skateboard friends. Only one problem, Stevie needs a board. He doesn't know how to skate. He doesn't know how to do anything. He just wants to be accepted, and he don't know how or why anything. There is no barrier. He has to be able to do it, or there is a barrier. He has to get across it. First, Ian is willing to trade him his old Ninja Turtle board, but eventually Stevie needs money and is tempted into stealing $80 from his own mother with the encouragement of Ian. Bum, bum, bum. Cole, what did you think about this scene? Did you feel for Stevie? Have you ever taken money from a parent as a kid? And you don't have to answer that if you don't want to, but like, could you empathize
You can plead the
with
fifth,
him
Cole.
in that moment?
Yeah. So I definitely think that scene is a very like applicable one that I feel like a lot of kids have been a part of, because everyone, especially back then, like nowadays I don't know how most kids steal from their parents, but back then their parents always had cash laying around, and it was always so tempting. You just stare at it and you're like, they don't really need that $20 or whatnot. I will say I don't have any vivid memory of me necessarily stealing from any of my my parentals. That whole scene is 100%. I've been in situations not necessarily stealing money, but when you know you're doing something bad and you're with your like sibling and you're like, if you do it, I'll do it. And it's like you should like if we're in it together, we can't both be it can't be that wrong, right? And then you're just like trying to like amp each other up to do something that you're not supposed to do.
Sibling solidarity.
Yeah, and in that one, Ian's definitely using his position of being the older brother. He knows his younger brother looks up to him and is just like, you need the money. I'm giving you the option to do it, but if you're doing it, you're doing it for me too, and you're getting me 40 as well. Like we're gonna be in this together. So
fair enough.
Yeah, I thought it was a
all
great,
right, siblings
great interaction.
Do we have any solidarity on the podcast?
Yeah, how much money have you guys stolen from your parents?
We're like 10 years apart, so
We are both good kids. We're good kids.
We were rule followers. I did not ever steal from my parents.
Nope.
My parents are cool, so I got along really well with them. And I do now, and I always did. So
Good for you, Kyle.
But yeah, we won't mention all the things I did do outside of the house.
Yeah,
Innocent.
Right? No.
Because even when you were saying, like, there's a $20 bill there, I'm like, well, kids now just take the credit card and spend it on Roblox. But
Yeah.
I was somewhere in between, so.
So, as a kid, my stepdad was a real piece of work. I'll be completely honest. We're good now, but he was not my favorite coming into the family as a teenager. He was a huge coin collector, had a giant-ass bucket of coins.
Did he have Sacagaweas? That was
I'm sure he did.
A big thing at that time. Man.
I would
the
come back
coin.
from college and go into the closet where he had all of the coinage, and I would take my beer money from my stepdad's quarter stack and take it back to college. To be completely honest, I'm admitting it here on the podcast. John, I'm sorry.
My question is, how many quarters, like, how are you taking a sack of quarters? You're like, I need beer money, and then you're just, like, walking out and no one's noticing just a giant coin purse of jingling.
Quietly walking out like you're wearing a suit of armor.
Clothes, you gotta roll it in there. We don't really need to know how I smuggled quarters out of that, but the point
is... got suspicious.
Anyway...
And then I want to know, so you took all these quarters and you then go to the liquor store and you go buy like a case of beer. And
absolutely not. You go straight to the Coin Star.
Okay,
Coin
so
Star.
Okay, well at least you were like good about it and weren't just a maniac.
I'm not money laundering
showing up
like
with
a savage,
with a jar of quarters.
He's just a thief, but he's not crazy.
All right. Yeah. The last question I had is right after Stevie does or does not, finds out he does steal it later, he looks at himself in the mirror very deeply. And then we're treated with the self-injury scene. And this is not the first time or the last time that we see this. Eric, you had kind of mentioned it earlier. I feel like this is the best time to kind of talk about why we feel like Stevie engages in these self-harming acts. Mostly because we see it in a bunch of different varieties throughout the entire film. So it's something that Jonah Hill wanted us to know about this character from the Jump Street. So, I don't know, Kelly, if you want to talk about it, I can talk about it. Anybody want to talk about why we think that Stevie is doing that? Is it a guilt complex? Is it just something to feel? Like, I don't know. Kind of expound on it if you feel comfortable doing so.
My commentary is not so much on why he as a character does it, but why did they want to include it in the film? And the reasoning that I ended up coming to, that I think why they wanted to include it, is that it shows later on, as these kind of self-harm sessions progress, it turns into him what would become alcoholism, like, really quick. And I felt like it was a vehicle for maybe Jonah Hill, or whoever wanted to put this movie together, it's Jonah Hill, to say that's a form of self-harm too, because he isolates himself in the bathroom with the 40 and is just drinking as fast as he can. And it is self-harm in the same way as everything else that he's doing. As far as the psychology of why you do that, that's another conversation, but for why he puts it in the film, I kind of felt like it was a subtle way for him to kind of push that message forward.
I didn't even think about the comparison between that and the 40 in the bathroom, but that's a really good call. I also agree. Does anybody else want to expound upon that thought? Kind of why we feel like Jonah Hill included that for his character. Not so much necessarily the reason why Stevie's doing it, but just Jonah's need to include that as part of this character's arc. Anybody want to throw in there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably just related to his own, thoughts and feelings about the whole situation, and more of like maybe like a healing type thing where he, puts it in the movie, and it's things that he's dealt with and is dealing with in terms of like injuring yourself for, you mess up, so you need to punish yourself kind of thing. And I think he's trying to maybe some type of healing or like cathartic type situation. And it's, again, this movie seems to be very, very closely connected to his own upbringing in life, so he is putting some of his demons, so to speak, out onto film as kind of a healing process. So, and also to give people to see some of the stuff that maybe has never been seen from his life, or that they could probably relate to. So
yeah, I feel like in Stevie's case, it's like he has no other outlets for what he's feeling, like after his brother beats him up, but also the fact, like, he's growing up without a dad. I think that affects him, and even though they don't like literally say it in this film, like, I think it affects him a lot. I feel like when a child has like no other outlets, they turn to self-harm, and later, like Kelly says, turns to like chugging a whole 40, and it's like just an outlet for the frustration and like anger he's feeling. I mean, for little bits, we see, his outlet is skateboarding, and that it's like shows how skateboarding can be such a therapeutic and cathartic thing and an outlet for kids. And, Ray is obviously, I would say, probably the most mentally healthy of all of them. And he shows him in that one scene, we don't have to go over it yet, but just like how this skateboarding can be an outlet for your frustrations and anger. Yeah. But early in the film, he doesn't know that, like, as a therapy technique yet. So,
which is great because, I mean, we get such a small amount of screen time for everybody, but we get so much development of Stevie as a character, right? We get such a raw position where he is to where he ends up at the end of the film in 90 minutes or less, and it's pretty wild to see how that goes.
No, but yeah, I was just going to say, I think you hit the point, and Eric said it too, but just drive it home. They wanted to really show that he's turning to everything. He needs something. And he's tried this and this and this, and the whole movie is him trying new things for the first time. Skateboarding is kind of how they sell it, like, hey, he's going to try getting in. But you just see when he's dealing with this anger, frustration, hopelessness, depression, despair, he's turning to so many different things, and he's willing to try anything, maybe to feel, maybe to whatever. But yeah, that's why I think it gets thrown in, as it's just one more thing that people turn to. And again, it adds to the grittiness and the realness of this entire movie.
100%. A character that we kind of glossed over a little bit earlier was this idea of Ruben, right? The previous bully kid, the younger group guy in the group that eventually gives his role to Stevie as Stevie comes in. I feel like Ruben, played by Gio Galassia, is a bit of an underrated character and is a little bit deeper than we see on the surface. Do we feel like he is a character worth diving into? Is he someone who just kind of pushes what was treated to him by the group onto Stevie and is someone that he can now bully around? Am I reading too much into Ruben? But I feel like his character is a driving force a lot for what Stevie does, as far as Stevie's actions, whether or not he's being accepted, how he feels about certain things, even though Ruben doesn't really have an overstated character arc. Kelly, what do you think about Ruben? And am I stepping on something here, or where do we feel like his relevance is to this whole thing?
You are stepping where you need to be stepping, because Ruben's my favorite character. And I all of them. And I love their nicknames and everything. Like, they do a really good job of establishing everybody. But Ruben is really interesting to me because he's still the little kid of the group. And he's still, pecking his way up. And he found a kid that he gets to peck down on. And it's so interesting the way that he both bullies him and is trying to help him at the same time. And he does such a good job of showing really like complex thoughts behind his eyes that are happening in the background of so many scenes. And it's like, does he still like Stevie? Does he hate him now? It's probably somewhere in between. And then we know he has this whole thing that's happening in his home life, and all those kids do too. And when he like delivers a line that says like, I don't go home until my mom goes to sleep, he holds this face of seriousness so hard in a lighthearted scene, one of the few in the movie, that, it gives you so much more. So he does a great job of showing us all of that. But I just like that he's the young kid of the group, and it changes the whole dynamic when a different young kid comes in, and it switched up his whole life, and now he has to give up his favorite shirt because that other kid was able to do the jump even though he failed and almost died, and I was too much of a wimp to try it myself, and that could have been me. Like, there's so many, like, complicated thoughts and feelings going on with Ruben, and when it comes to kids, like, Ruben's like that, like, middle school age where I just want to, like, grab his shoulders and be like, you got this, kid. Like, I love Ruben. He's a gem.
And yet he has no self-confidence, and he has to go up to people that he just moat and be like, I smoke, I skate, I fuck bitches, even though you absolutely don't believe a single word that he says.
You see how he's smoking that cigarette?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I smoke.
One of my favorite things about this movie in general is all of the words that are not said, or all of just the moment. You said it perfectly. All of the things behind the eyes as he's just watching a scene, and the camera just pans as he's sitting with a group of people. No words are said, but you don't need to. You know exactly what he's feeling, or at least you have an idea. And there's just so many times in this film where I feel like it's just that. It's this idea that you have an emotion without saying those words. And there's just a really cool movie technique, I feel like, that he is able to accomplish that, where you kind of have those things flowing. Anybody else have a particular opinion? Oh, Kelly, go ahead.
Not to soapbox even further, but
Please.
There's an emotion that I feel goes away once you get a little older, and it isn't present when you're a kid, but right at that age, you have, like, this jealousy, envy, like, at the same time feeling. And I feel like Ruben is our character that embodies that, and that's not an emotion that people carry forever. It's just like that in-between phase, and he does both, like, perfectly. If it was a Inside Out movie, he would be whatever that emotion is.
So we're moving forward, right? And now all of a sudden, Mom finds out the $80 is gone, right? She calls Stevie into the room where Ian is, and basically was like, "Hey, did you do this? I know Ian stole it. My baby boy would never do this." And Stevie was like, "No, I didn't do it," and throws Ian completely under the bus. Why? Cole, why does Stevie do this? Is it revenge? Is he starting to branch out a little bit? Is his friend's influence starting to be an effect here at this point in the film? What did you think about this scene?
Yeah, I think this is a very pivotal point in, like, Stevie's kind of mindset towards his brother, in realizing that he doesn't idolize him anymore. And he now idolizes his new friends and Ray and those guys, and he's not gonna, he just isn't gonna be put up with Ian anymore, and he gets to a point where he has the power over Ian, and he uses it against him, and he knows that there's gonna be repercussions, but I think it's at this point where instead of trying to do everything for Ian, he's at a point where that sibling rivalry is going to take, a real turn where they're not going to like each other for a while. And hopefully they come back, as all siblings do. I feel like most sibling relationships, you kind of go through parts where you absolutely hate each other, and then you like each other, and then you hate each other, and then you get old enough, and then you like each other. So it seems to be what they're going through. But yeah, I think it was a good pivotal point where it just showed him branching out and realizing he doesn't need Ian, doesn't want Ian. He's got his own friends. He's got his cool friends that'll beat Ian up.
Eric, you don't have to get overly detailed, but as far as you and your relationship with your siblings, have you always had a rosy relationship with your sisters? Do you have that kind of comparison too, where things were, a certain way? Like, I know I can say that about me and my siblings. It wasn't always sunshine. We're all best friends now, but it wasn't always that way. I think this movie just asked some really important questions about not only family relationships, but friend relationships, but also family relationships too.
Well, yeah, what I was talking to Kelly about is that, of course, I didn't always have a rosy relationship with my sister. Like, yeah, we had our aunts and offs or whatever, but also, like, I felt like growing up with two sisters, it's just so different than growing up with an older brother and also being a boy as the younger brother, because whenever we had fights, it would be like, we would deal with our emotions, actually. Like, we would get angry at each other, insult each other, like, but we wouldn't beat each other up, we would never resort to physical violence, and so it's just a much different feeling than what I saw in this film. And also, I think I actually grew up to be a probably mentally healthier human being because I had two older sisters as a young kid, because when you have two older sisters, it's okay to like be more in touch with your feminine side growing up because that's who you relate to, having two older sisters. But as you see in this film, anything a little bit feminine, it's going to get beat out of you by your older brother. So,
right?
It's just a much different feeling growing up with a older brother. So, as a young boy, now I'm not saying Kelly, she's a younger girl. So, yeah,
right. I get it. All right, we're going to take a little break here. I want to pause from the actual thematic elements because I want to take advantage of our guest here a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the skateboarding itself, about the 90s. I want to talk about kind of the general movement. Kyle, what did you think about the way they represented kind of just the history of skateboarding, the way that it was in the 90s, and just in general, kind of your comparison to what the counterculture of skateboarding is, and just why that was... You had mentioned it earlier, how skateboarders love that aspect about this film, of using real-life skateboarders, of having that element. Kind of just talk to me about that aspect of this film in general.
It's hard for me to speak on how accurate it was, because I was not in California in the 80s, 90s growing up, right?
Sure.
I had small-town skater groups and stuff, but we didn't have the internet, so my view of what skater life was VHS tapes, and all of us sitting around in a room playing the new Toy Machine Girl Rodney Mullen video and just being like, oh yeah, we suck, we can't skate at all. But in every one of those videos was like them partying, hanging out, groups, and you just, again, that was like the cool thing. And my older cousin Amber was, I felt like, as a kid, she was cool, partying, having fun. She had that cool friend group. They weren't skaters at all, but they matched that kind of energy and vibe in their friend group. And I think all of us, like on the younger generation, thought that was really cool. And we saw that in the skate videos. So I think they portrayed that really well and accurately, that the guys, that are there to skate, but that isn't the majority of the people hanging around. It's just a lot of people who are kind of misfits, and they found this new brotherhood to hook into. And just riding around on your skateboard is extremely fun and relaxing, and you don't think about anything else but balancing and getting over that crack and falling down that curb. Like, nothing else matters when you're just flowing around. And I think they showed that multiple times in the movie.
I mean, I absolutely agree. Something for me, I was never a skateboarder, but I was the type of guy who wanted to be cool at all costs, right? So it might have been skateboarding, it might have been BMX biking, it might have been all of the little things that I thought were cool, but never had an opportunity to kind of do. I know it's weird to think about, but like something like the advent of Tony Hawk Pro Skater, Jackass, Bam Margera, some of these things that really started taking the popularity of this counterculture and making it more mainstream was cool as hell for a kid like me, starting to see that type of stuff and being like, well, this is something I can aspire to at least be around and be cool about. Cole, you want to talk to me a little bit about, that idea, right? The counterculture, Jackass, like that type of why this is a movie that becomes relevant for our generation much later?
I will try to touch on it.
That's fine if you don't want, it's cool.
No. I mean, that whole counterculture stuff went in, I was definitely in the Tony Hawk era. I was never a skater. I broke my arm on a longboard once, but never did any actual skateboard or anything like that. But yeah, like the whole counterculture, and like I watched all of the Jackasses and Bam Margera and stuff like that. I think it definitely related to our generation and got popular because we were kind of I would say a misplaced generation, because it was like the internet was just forming and we were trying to find our way. Cell phones were not really a thing, but we were trying to connect, and there was just a lot of misfits, and a lot of like the punk scene was a thing. And I don't know, I don't know. I don't really know how to answer this question, Kevin. It's very hard.
You did a good job. You did a good job. Counterculture existed in our generation. We saw it, and it was part of kind of what made this movie nostalgic for a lot of us, regardless if we were skaters or not. It was part of what we were seeing in general as part of the media, and that's what makes it cool. Yeah? Yeah. All right. We could keep talking a lot. There's a couple other thematic points that I feel like we want to hit on here. The argument that Ray and Fuckshit have around the idea of all that try-hard shit being corny, I feel like is a really central part of this theme of this film. Whether or not it's better to be try-hard, to work for your goals, to actually strive and be good at them, or let things come to you, react, and not rock the boat. Kelly, what side of the camp are you? Do you think that this is a good question to be asking? Do we feel like we're stretching a little bit? Kind of, is this a good theme? Just what are your thoughts on what I just kind of laid down there?
Yeah, no, this is a good question to ask because they were besties growing up, right? And I like that the three older kids, so those two and fourth grade, they're all kind of figuring out what they're going to be when they grow up. They're pretty much on the precipice of growing up. And skating as a career is a really crazy thing. Like when they have that conversation with the guy who's out of work, he's like, I didn't know you could make that into a career. So it was kind of on the precipice. I like that we have a kid who's going to take it desperately seriously, and then a kid who fuck shit seems to be the rich kid, right? So he grew up in like the cusp of privilege, and so he doesn't see it as like a way out of anything. He takes it for granted and it's his release. But unfortunately, he's starting to fall into, partying lifestyle instead. So it's this like natural thing that kind of happens to friends where you're both going to go different ways based on where you came from. I like that they express that. I like how they show it happening in front of, because it does seem, the thing I like about skater culture, I'm not a skater. I stole Kyle's skateboard a couple times to go just like sit on my butt and go down a hill. That's the extent of my skating career. It's a very like authentic culture. So when it does become something that like now a skateboarder is kind of corporate. So like Tony Hawk is probably a millionaire, if not more. That's pretty crazy. So it is like at the start of that. So it's inauthentic to become like a business person when it comes to skating, and to kind of be sitting there amongst everybody when the cops are going to blow out your spot at the end of the day, and you're kind of having like a business transaction with these like skateboard influencers, you could almost call them. I can see where both of them are coming from. It's just like this really interesting dichotomy, and I like that it's not like the main focus, but kind of the B-roll story happening. Because it's like a crazy thing, and there's nothing else quite like it.
I think it's great to ask
nowadays.
the bigger question. Did we have that moment in our lives where we had to have that question between, is it worth being try-hard? Is that corny? Or is it worth having fun? Is it worth
I
letting
think
it roll
the
off?
thing is, skating, like the people that are professional skateboarders, they make it look effortless and cool, but really they probably fucking worked at it like 10 hours a day and worked their fucking ass off to get where they are. And especially Tony Hawk, he like, I saw a documentary about him on HBO, and right, like when he was 14 years old, he was working his ass off nonstop. He was like one of the first people to really figure out like half pipe skating and like vertical skating, like not just street skating. And he like didn't stop at it for hours and hours a day. And so I think that maybe like how the kids have or those kids in this film have received skating culture is like it is effortless and cool. It should just come to you. But really, all those guys that like made a living out of it, they worked really, really hard to get where they are.
And I think it's very intentional that the one person that has the level head, the one person who tries the hardest, the one person who has this attitude is the best one, is the one that might actually have a chance at making it. And I think that's very poignant.
It was all about making it seem like it was easy and almost rubbing it in the faces of everyone else that I can 50-50 this rail and you can't even ollie the stair set. Like, that was the sort of like beatdown talk that we all got. I got called poser a ton of times until you could drop in and then finally get a pop on a ramp or land some flip tricks. You would get shit on, basically, and I very much had to be a tryhard just to get over that hump and get a tiny amount of acceptance into that group. The pros, when they would come around, it would never be at our local park. It'd be at one of the events and things, and you'd go watch them, and it's night and day. It's like street hockey versus college and NHL pros. Like, it's another world what those top guys do, and that's why they have the better attitude, is they know how hard they worked,
right,
and how much they sacrificed to get there. And I think the average like kid who learns it quicker, more natural, more given ability is gonna just kind of develop maybe even like an attitude about it, unless they're just really well adjusted. Because
Yep. All right, so we've been dancing around this scene for a while, and we finally are going to get to it. We're going to go talk about the underage party, the underage drinking scene, the one that, is pretty controversial in general outside of this scene, and we're just going to dive right into it. And a little bit past midway through the point, we get, like I said, one of the more controversial scenes, and it's the scene that it basically felt like, for me, Eric, it came straight out of Superbad, or at least why it was put into this film while it was. 13-year-old Stevie, played at the time by an 11-year-old actor, makes out with an older woman at the party, played by Alexa Demi. And Alexa Demi goes on to be a main actress in Euphoria, if I'm correct, right, as far as A24 is concerned. But that's not necessarily what we're talking about. It's more the fact that she was rumored to be 27 at the time of filming and making out with an 11-year-old. Not obviously a great situation to find yourself in when it comes to the questions about child safety, especially when it comes to sex in Hollywood. I don't want to elaborate it too much, but it is something we need to talk about because this film does have this mark on it, and people ask about it. So what do we think? Was it awkward to watch? What was the scene? Why was it included? And kind of what were thoughts, not just the way that it was acted, but kind of all the fallout from it after the fact. Eric, you're first, and then we'll go from there.
I don't know how Jonah Hill and everybody involved got away with letting this all happen. I'm guessing that the actor, Sonny I don't even know how to pronounce his last name, Suljic. Guessing that his parents had to sign off on this and say it was okay to be put in this situation and for, this all to happen. But then that goes further into the questions of like, okay, I'm guessing people, Jonah Hill and the people involved in making this film probably were offering this kid and his family a lot of money to be in this film. And probably said, like, okay, well, this script involves this scene where this 11-year-old kid is going to be making out with somebody who is much older than him. And so you have, like, the kind of motive of money, probably from the family, to sign up and say, okay, it's okay for my kid to do this, which is a very slippery slope that I feel happens, in Hollywood a little bit. I think it's a little creepy. Does it ruin the whole film for me? Not necessarily, because I do understand it's still a piece of art, and it's trying to show what life would have been like in the 90s, and maybe how it would have been at one of these parties. Like, it's not completely unrealistic to think, like, an elementary schooler may have hooked up with somebody probably in late middle school, early high school, especially in these skating crowds, and also just crowds where people are all getting fucked up and drunk and inebriated. So right. I think it's realistic that it might have happened, but like it does make me feel a little icky that this was actually put on film, and like every party involved had to probably allow this to happen and let it happen. So.
I think it's the same reason that Jonah Hill is comfortable with using the homophobic slurs as much as he is. The conversation. That's
realistic.
It's all
time,
based on the idea of realism, right? I'm not making excuses for it, but I'm like, that's probably why.
Yeah.
One thing we didn't talk about earlier is this Sonny fella is the same character, the same kid who played Bob in Killing of a Sacred Deer. For those that don't know, as far as A24, he was in Killing of a Sacred Deer as Bob.
And the guy that goes leaves the mom's room that hooks up with the mom of the two kids. That's Harmony Korine, the director of Spring Breakers.
I couldn't find and the director of Kids, which is the whole basis for this entire film, which we'll get to.
I didn't know
in
this
a second.
Was based off that.
Surprise! We'll talk about that in a
Bird.
moment. I'm running out of time. Anyway. And then Lady Bird, the fourth grade. No, Ian, the actor who played Ian, was in Lady Bird
he's in a ton
as
of,
well.
And Jonah Hill's sister's in Lady Bird.
Yes, she was in Lady Bird, the fun character. What's her name? Someone
Julie.
help me. Yeah.
Julie.
We're digressing here a little bit, and we're running out of time because this movie has a lot that we can talk about, and that's fine for me. Let's see, where did
does anybody else have anything to say on that scene?
Yeah, that's a big scene. Anybody else?
Yeah,
awkward?
because,
hard?
Yeah.
Extremely awkward, difficult.
But why not show this kind of situation when they've already shown this kid getting the crap beaten out of him, when they've shown all of these, like, other things happening to him, like self-harm, etc. I don't think that a lot of movies show this kind of scenario. And not only, it's not like I'm saying, like, good for them, but it's a real thing. They're trying to show a lot of realism, and I think that even more impactful than the actual act happening is the after effects. This is a kid that not only had this happen, but also afterwards he's inebriated on several different substances and thinks to kind of brag about it and giggle about it and all these kind of things. It's something that he's not even realizing what happened, and he won't probably for a long time if he ever does. And I don't think that that's something that's always shown. I like that it's included, because that is something that I think would happen to a kid when you're too lost in the sauce of being cool. This seems like a cool thing to do. And to brag about to your friends. So, yeah, I don't even think he had a choice.
And
if he wanted to or not.
I think there's one saving grace is that I don't think they. Yeah, I don't think they look upon it favorably either, because that line that Alexa Demi's character had right before they went in the room is like, you were like all, you know, before all those kids, like those boys, like turn into assholes. Basically, she's basically
100%.
She knows 100% what she's doing. Yep.
Honoring his purity, and like you could tell that there was like kind of a pedophile angle there, and that I think Jonah Hill put that in purposely to be like, this is creepy, like it's not okay, but then also still showed it. So. Yeah.
Right, but then the question, the commentary of what like Kelly just said, do you brag it to your friends? Is that something that you go home about, or is it something that you're actually traumatized about? Like, that's the question, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, plot-wise, no problem with it. Mm-hmm. But the scene itself took me right out of the movie, because it was impossible to not say, she looks way older than her character, he looks way younger than 13, and this is really happening.
Yeah.
And I can't not think about everything Eric brought up. That's where my mind goes, and I'm out of the movie watching that going, this is awful.
And that's the commentary that a lot of folks have, exactly that. And especially watching it now, it's like, oh man, maybe not great. So, which is the reason we have to talk about it when we're reviewing it in 2024, because that's a major thing that gets talked about after the fact, and that's the reality. So. One character that we've talked about in passing, but we haven't really given any credit, is Katherine Waterston's character of the mom. I wrote my notes as sweetness personified when it comes to this character. I really feel like she having a very small backstory that you'd only get through other characters is kind of a disservice to her. But in her scenes that she does come out through, the skate shop scene, for example, where she's telling the boys off, was fantastic. So let's spend 30 seconds talking about Katherine Waterston and her role as mom in this one. Cole, do you think she was mad about the fingering?
Yeah, I think she probably was just like, how the fuck does my kid even know about that?
And I don't think he did know about that.
No, I don't think he did.
No, he didn't. But yeah, I think that whole scene of her confronting all the skaters at the shop and stuff like that was such a good scene. She does a fantastic job of just being a pissed off mom who has no real plan, but just is mad and wants to confront these people, and then immediately it's just like, what's your name? And it's just fuck shit. It's like she just has like that momentary lapse, and then just immediately calls him a fuckhead, which I thought was a great
fuckhead or whatever your name is.
All right, fuckhead.
Yeah, and then you leave that, and then they go to the car, and then Stevie just has an absolute meltdown, and it's basically just like yelling at her, and she realizes now that maybe that tactic wasn't the best, and now she's almost kind of reverting, trying to keep the innocence of her son and trying to keep that relationship they used to have by just saying, I'll drop you off, I'll take you wherever you want to go, I just want to know that you're safe and stuff like that. And it was definitely a very heart-wrenching scene to see her go from just a very concerned mom to Stevie being a kid where his whole life is revolving around his friends, and she just, in his mind, she just ruined that. None of those guys are ever going to want to talk to him. He's such a loser now because his mom came and talked to them and told them not to hang out with him, and now his whole life is ruined, and he let her have it, and it was such a good scene, and she's definitely an underappreciated character in this film. So I
100%.
Very good.
This scene was massive for me. Huge, pivotal, well acted, something that I didn't see coming. It was a big deal. I mean, saying fuck you to a parent is a big step. If you've never done it, it's a hard one. If you have done it, you probably remember the first time that you did do it. Like, it's wild, right? And it's hard to come back from that. And the scene was really, really well acted. Cole, you said it perfectly. Like, to go from literally the first words that she gets in the car is, they look like fucking gang members, to, I just want to know where you are. Like, in 30 seconds, she goes from, I am angry mama bear, to, I just want to support because my kid is upset. Like, it was just really well done, really well acted. I loved it. I don't really want to expand on it too much else. Anybody else have a thought on the car scene in general? Cool.
Nope.
All right, so we get on to the heart-to-heart that Eric had alluded to earlier in the episode, right? So Stevie is pretty broken up after his mom and him get in this fight. Ray comes out and shares a really intimate story about when Ray's brother was killed in a hit-and-run essentially across the street. That fuck shit came to his house and took him out skating because he just needed someone to be near him. As someone who's lost people in his life and who's had that conversation, who's been in that spot, it was really poignant, it was really important, and they did a really good job of making it simple and straightforward and having a conversation that mattered, at least to me as the viewer. Kyle, did you agree? Kelly, did you agree? Everyone, this is a question for all of you. If you've ever dealt with loss or been in that spot, did you kind of empathize with the characters? Just comment on this scene for me.
I'll be quick. Just best scene of the movie. I thought that leading up to this, the plot was barely there. You're kind of just coasting through this movie, learning bits and pieces and feeling a lot of things and this and that. And this is where everything you've suffered through basically watching this movie starts to finally pay off. And I think they did a good job of it.
I mean, and you don't even have to rush in that. I think that's a really good point. Like, everything that you put yourself through emotionally is kind of paid off in this moment. And I think that's a really important part of what they're going for and what A24 in general does, and why we love a lot of these films, is because there is that payoff. There's that emotional point in the film that you can kind of launch into. And as someone who doesn't watch all of these with us, it's really cool that you kind of picked up on that as being, as the spot. So, Kelly, you're next. What are your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, I would agree that is the spot. It's like the longest scene without a cut also, so you're really stuck in it for a while. You're really sitting there listening to them, and it feels like you've been through a lot as well at this point. And then it's immediately followed by just the two of them skating down the middle of the road to the Smiths track, which Trent Reznor was influential. He did a lot of the music for this, and I have to think he helped select a lot of the soundtrack, which for me, if you're going to pick a Smiths song to be the emotional point, that means Trent Reznor's confirmed as the Smiths fan.
I mean, it makes sense to me. For those who don't
know, Kyle not like the Smiths? Why are you? I think you're looking at Kyle when you're saying Trent Reznor's a fan of the Smiths.
That loves everything.
I was looking at no one.
Thoughts on Trent Reznor? Yeah, being a fan of the Smiths. Of course, I would think he would be a fan of the Smiths. So I feel like a lot of people that grew up in the '80s, that especially like huge music fans that are into indie music, would love the Smiths. So, all
right,
I like.
We're talking about the music a little bit here. Oh, go ahead, please.
As you're going to talk more about the music, I like that it's not just like the ambient Trent Reznor kind of soundtrack that goes on for like the emotional peaks, but he references a lot of music not only from the mid-90s like the movie, but he picks older songs too, because of course that's going to influence everything else that goes on. And I really like how it's mixed throughout the movie, where the music is really overpowering in some parts, so when they strip it away and give it silence, it's a lot more impactful.
Absolutely. I feel like for me, it's really obvious that Jonah Hill cares a lot about the music that goes into this film. It was basically put in interviews that he picked every single song that he wanted to be in this before he had licensed rights for any of it, and wrote the scenes directly based on the songs that he wanted to put in. A lot of these songs were put directly scene by scene from famous cult skateboarding videos. There's one from 1996 that is the Mouse Skate video that's put out that basically uses Herbie Hancock's Watermelon Man, and it's a straight,
such a good song,
scene for scene essentially that they use with Ray skating the part that one of the famous skateboarders, Guy Ferreira, I believe his name is, anyway, does that to Watermelon Man from that skate video. So that is truly Jonah Hill's fandom of 90s skate videos, and the way that he shot all of those bits with the fisheye lens and the way that it was down low. Eric, you had talked about it in the aspect ratio. But the music that he used was brilliant. And then the fact that he basically got lucky that Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross agreed to do this. Long story short, for our listeners who don't know, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did the soundtrack for The Social Network, which is one of Jonah Hill's favorite soundtracks and films in general. So basically through his Hollywood contacts, more or less, he got in front of Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and they agreed to do this soundtrack for this more or less for free, because we had mentioned the budget for Mid90s was almost nothing, and to get some guys like that with the chops, I mean, they won an Oscar for that for the Social Network. Like, these guys are true movie soundtrack, masters at this point, and their lending to this film goes a long, long way, and it's really, really cool. They wrote the original score for this film. The soundtrack in general is something I could listen to constantly for this film in general, and I think it's just a really, really good soundtrack with a lot of great music. So props to Jonah Hill, props to the sound editing team and the soundtracks, and everybody who gave permission for these guys to use the music too. They didn't have to do that. I don't think they got a lot of royalties on it either, and they just agreed to let them in there because they understood where they were coming from and the inspiration for it. So yeah.
Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross are probably two of the best composers of our generation. I would put them and Ludwig Göransson probably like side by side as the best composers of our generation when it comes to film composing. So everything they compose turns to gold. So.
And it's truly the way that Trent Reznor describes it. He basically just gets in a room with the writer-director and is like, tell me what you want. Describe to me how you want to do this, because I want to make people feel with your movie, and you need to tell me how you want it to feel. And they did such a great job of doing that. I feel like so often you would probably just get like, I'm going to write it based on what you, like a movie that you get, but he wants to hear it. He wants to like feel it.
And that has a lot to do with industrial music too, where Nin is industrial music, and they use a lot of unique sounds and noises, and that's kind of like the whole point of industrial, is to use like different sounds and noises to convey emotion, and I think that's what he does with his soundtracks very well.
Jonah Hill talks about it, how he felt like Social Network was a really, really cold soundtrack. That was the intention, right, to have it disconnected, the whole technology, and then he went to them directly and says, I want your perverse take on a warm soundtrack, because so much about this film is about the warm connections and things that you feel in life, and you really get that, and I think it's really apparent. So really cool. Kyle, anything else you want to throw in on the music? I know you had talked about wanting to, that was something that you had taken notes on. What are your thoughts on the music with this whole thing?
I am a much bigger expert in loving Nine Inch Nails and Trent Reznor than I am of anything else we're doing.
All right. Okay. Talk to me about it.
Favorite band, my favorite artist, and everything he does is gold. He can do no wrong. I have a man crush on him. Like, worship the guy. Having him and Atticus Ross do this soundtrack, I did not know that until I saw the movie, and so I was like, oh, sick. So I paid extra attention to it. And then you get into this movie, and 30 minutes in, not much is happening, but you're feeling a lot of things. And the music is what's there to push how you're supposed to be feeling. That's how I took it. And if you listen through the entire Nine Inch Nails catalog, he is a king of building tension for all kinds of things, negativity, sorrow, despair. But he has a song called A Warm Place that's on the Downward Spiral album that is a building, almost atmospheric background, nothing but keyboards and odd sounds, because it is all industrial based. It's in the realm of Skinny Puppy and Ministry, but somehow beautiful. It's not just harsh like true industrial music. It's so unique. It's my favorite thing. I love that he did the music here all the way back. I mean, I was a kid when Natural Born Killers came out, and Trent did the soundtrack for that. The music was all over the place. Lost Highway he did. I mean, just like, he'll put Patsy Cline in a scene. He'll put, I don't know, I could just ramble about how much I love it, and I think it's brilliant what he does. And I love that he is like now a very well respected, like award-winning composer. He did the music for the Disney movie Soul. That's like a jazz.
Great movie.
There's nothing that you can't do, and I think he's really good at pulling in other genres and people, and what he did here was just fit the time period. I'm sure he is a fan of the Smiths, but the Smiths is skater music. They're right there in that realm. It doesn't... That's just the kind of... Like, punk was huge. I don't even like punk music that much, but, like, all those... That's what everybody loved. Dead Kennedys and Operation Ivy, all that stuff. I heard it constantly. Yeah. No Effects. And so, like, yeah, I thought the Smiths was a great choice because they're a lot, like, classier version of the kind of punk music for that scene.
I don't think...
I don't know how much
It feels like a breeze. Yeah, like going down the road, hitting a breeze, hitting a cool breeze. That's what that song feels like.
Skateboard videos don't exist the way they do without good soundtracks, right? If you think about the way that you have to put that to parts. I had a really small foray into the whole skate snowboard world. I was joining a roommate who I barely knew who was big into the amateur snowboard scene in Marquette. And you would go to place and you would try to do these videos where you're basically just filming content for the sake of content, filming it, editing in your dorm room, putting it on YouTube for you and a bunch of buddies to watch. But it's that feeling that you find the right song for the right part that just hits right at the right time. I went back and I watched an hour or so of old skate videos from the 90s after watching this movie last night, and holy shit, I watched the whole Famous Bird video that the mouse video that this one was based out of. It just brought me right back to a time where Tony Hawk was king, and just it was music and skating, and it was an art form, and it's lost now. I don't think it's the way it was. I remember going at Northern right away, Eric, to like they would have ski or snowboard video premieres, and people would show up and they would be like throwing like swag into the crowd and like boards, and it was the whole scene for snowboarding. But I get the idea of kind of what it would have been like in the summers for the 90s for skateboard kids.
Somebody was a snowboarder if they were wearing like a really large, oversized, colorful hoodie. If they they were probably like a medium or small, but they were wearing like a double XL hoodie.
Yep. Went down to their knees, 100%. Maybe even longer, and a really loose beanie.
Yeah. They had a lot of straps hanging off their coats.
Yeah.
Too.
Yes, so many.
A lot of ropes and straps, and I don't know what they're for.
Right.
Yeah.
But it looked cool.
Did. All right, we are at the end of our review. It is now time to throw any last-minute things we want to talk about. Impact on modern cinema. Do we feel like mid-90s kind of was a signaling of a shift at all in the world of cinema? Do we feel like it has any lasting impact? Is there anything else about coming-of-age films that we talk about in general? We love our 8th grade. We love our... American Honey, Lady Bird, all these slice of life ones. Kind of just elaborate on kind of just that last bit here before we get to our final reviews. Kelly, you first.
Yeah, my question was, is mid-90s the right title for this movie? Because I feel like it sets up a different way to watch the movie than if it had a different title. Because it could be called something else. And if it was called something else, what might you call it? Eric?
And Jonah Hill talks about it like he was a kind of a joke name. Jonah Hill says, like, I was trying to do a bait and switch where I tried to get people to think about it as a nostalgia film, but then I gave him a film that wasn't a nostalgia film. Yeah. At the end, he did give them a nostalgia film.
Yeah, it's a nostalgia film to me. And
you're right, I'm with you, Kelly.
I like the film title Mid-90s, but because they didn't put a space between mid and 90s.
Oh, okay. If they didn't do that, it'd be
the aesthetically pleasing side
it is actually aesthetically pleasing.
That's even my graphic design influence on you.
To me, it is a nostalgia film, and it's all about the 90s, like mid-90s skateboard scene, and what it would have been like to be a little kid growing up in that. And that was specifically big in like Southern California too. So I think this whole film is also like an homage to Southern California in the 90s and how things used to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. To me, it just feels like the project title, and like it never got a real title at the end. But I like where it ended up. But it feels like it could be named something else. I don't know.
Snakes on a plane.
Is that what you would name it, Kyle?
Yeah.
That was like a working title that they had to keep. Like, if we're making this movie, mid-90s, we'll name it later.
Yeah.
And then they just went with it. No space.
Final thoughts. I think the character of Ray is like the much needed, almost parental figure, role model that Stevie needed the whole time. Especially, you know, like we already talked about, after Stevie got in the fight with his mom, he shows him like, okay, you know, like, I know you're angry, but like, think about all the other people. Like, you probably want a different lot in life, but if you looked at other people's lots in life, you wouldn't want that one. And then he takes him skateboarding, and it was just like, this is my therapy. I'm sure you can find it therapeutic too. And then we get the whole car crash scene, which is really, really hard to watch. Like, the first time I saw this film, like, are they really going to end with Stevie just dying from a car crash? Because the way they shot it, just how it took, or it like happened in a flash, which is how a car crash usually does happen. And then they just show him for briefly in the hospital, really tough, like seeing the oxygen mask on him. You think he's probably about to pass away. Then he wakes up and you're like, oh, okay, he's okay. And yeah, the mom goes out, sees all of them in the hospital room, and is just like, it brought a tear to both Kelly and I's eyes. Just, it makes you think of those like ride or die friends that will be with you through thick and thin, even though fuck shit was the one that drank and drove and caused the whole thing. But I think that is what this film is about, is just, I would say, like, the bond between all of them and how much they care for each other in the end. But also, I think it's about Stevie working through a life without a dad, and like working through masculinity, what it means to him and what it means to others, I guess, in the 90s, and what Ray leaves him with, and is, I think, what one of the last lines of the film is, you literally take the hardest hits out of literally take the hardest hits out of anyone I've ever seen in my life. You know, you don't have to do that, right? And that's such a comment on, like, you know, you don't have to just like take it all in. You don't have to take all this pain and just like swallow it and have it come out in different ways. Like, well, he obviously doesn't know he self-harms, but like, it's like, you don't have to harbor all this pain. You can share it with us. You can talk to us about it. You can, this is what your friends are here for. This is what we're here for, and we're here for you. And
hell yeah,
that I think is what the end of the film is trying to say. And then it's like, then cut to the skating video, all these guys having such a great time together, like memories that you'll remember for the rest of your life. And
I find it interesting that, not that I was willing to skip over the end, but that I kind of didn't think about it because there was so many other topics that were happening. But that end is really a poignant way that this whole film comes together. You're not wrong at all. I feel like the way that the artistic approach to having that final scene with fuck shit driving drunk, of everyone having a different emotion on their face, of having fourth grade who doesn't say anything the entire film finally say something right at the very second, can you pull over, and then the flash and the crash. Like, there was just a really, really there's a lot of strength to that scene. The
way it was shot was really well done.
It was, the penultimate scene was just really put together in the right way. And then I mentioned this earlier, but the unspoken words that you get in that final scene where the mom is just looking at the boys, I also had a tear to my eye just thinking about, like, they all don't have a lot going on, but at the end of the day, one of their friends is down and they're going to be there. And it was enough to make their mom, who by all right should have just throttled all of them and just should have been like, I'm going to kill all of you. You almost murdered my child. But she had a soft heart, and I didn't even question it. I went, okay, I get it.
Sure.
And I thought that was cool. So, anybody else want to throw in the ending here? I kind of, I honestly did not mean to ignore it, but it's just honestly weird kind of how we get to the end here. And it's like, oh yeah, this is a big deal, this final scene, the way that this movie wraps up. What did we think? Kyle, did you like the ending? Were you kind of against the ending? What did we think about the way?
I thought it was a fine way to end the movie. I think the only thing we didn't maybe mention is I think they just gave you the closure of he found his people. Like, they were there for him, even though they're all kind of losers, and, they all showed up at different times and stood up for him and then let him down, with the exception of Ray. But at the end, even the mom kind of accepted that, because I also would have been fine if she just went in there and started ripping throats, because she would have been totally justified.
Right, 100%.
But she just kind of she took her time and just thought, like, this is going to be better for him to have these people because they clearly care. And I think that was what they wanted to show.
Level-headed, rational parent. Wild.
Tough.
I know, right? Tough. Okay, let's get into it. Final review times. This movie had a lot going on. We've talked about a lot of the real-life scenarios, a lot of the stuff about the film. We've talked about the directors, the writers, the actors. We've talked about all the little things that go into it. Now it's time to give our final grade. For those of you who have not heard us before, we're about to rate this A through F24 with E's included for some of you. I mean, I don't think this movie's going to even touch that, so I'm not worried about it, but we're going to launch right into it. Cole, it's been a while since we've heard from you. I apologize, but why don't you go ahead and jump right into your review, buddy, and tell us what you're thinking about this whole film.
So I watched this film 3 times, which I think is usually a good indication that I enjoy this film. I am a sucker for slice of life. I like the setting a lot. I like the way it's filmed and the aspect ratio. And, you know, sometimes some of those, like, artistic choices annoy me. This was not one of them. I think it just added to it and really captured the vibe and feel of the time frame and the story is trying to tell. I also think that even though I was not a skater kid and I was towards the tail end of the 90s and I grew up in a small farm town that really had nothing related to anything they talked about, but
you could have been the one skater kid, Cole. You missed out. You would have been that cool one skater kid in the farm town.
We did eventually get a skate park in the town over, so that was kind of a big deal for a lot of people. I never went to it, but they did make a hockey rink there as well, so I did attend that. But
nice.
No, like for a movie that is so far removed from, I would say, my childhood, it is still extremely nostalgic and still I can resonate a lot with what they're talking about. And, you know, they do this with the relationships with the siblings and the mother and the friends and, you know, just all of those dynamics are written so well and done very masterfully. There's like some scenes that we talked about, like, you know, the scene with the, you know, the underage, with the child, you know, having the sex scene and all that stuff is very strange and takes you out of the movie. And I understand why it's there because it is a part of, you know, what happened and the story to be told, but it is hard to watch and makes you very uncomfortable, which it should, right? Like, that's kind of the whole point. It's hard for me to really not like anything about it. I don't think it quite scratches the A tier for me. Like, Lady Bird is one that I kind of compare this to. It's another A24 film. It's another slice of life. But it's just something about Lady Bird just had that extra it factor for me. So this one I'm gonna give a B plus 24. I think it's very solid. I recommend anyone to watch it, especially anyone that was born or grew up in the 90s generation. It's a good movie, man. It's just it's simple, it's small, it's a self-contained little story and gives you a very interesting glimpse of life that you might not be akin to. So
all right,
that's my
love
review.
It. Very nice. Kyle, I'm going to ask you to go on next.
All right. Well, as a not movie expert whatsoever, you guys gave me a really artsy movie that had stuff that I like, and it was told as a dark comedy, and I never laughed. I felt uncomfortable, and I mean, it just put me in my feels a bunch, and like, yeah,
it's
all around like unenjoyably good movie. If that's a thing, and I kind of thought, like, I didn't know how you guys rate things, so I kind of put it in the middle, so I'll go with, like, just a C+, and I'll add the 24, because that's what you do. In that, like, there were so many things I think that they maybe could have done better, but I'm not the guy to know how. And I think, like, they could have developed these characters with more plots and stuff, but I think the choices were made on purpose to just sort of sit there and stare at them and stare at them watching things happen. And it is an artistic choice. It delivers. And so it might be a way better movie than I'm giving it credit for, but, you know, I went into this thinking mid-90s, dark comedy, Jonah Hill, cool music, and then I just was, like, punched in the face.
Yeah.
It's like, geez, this is really dark. It's very reminiscent of Kids, which is another movie that's, like, hard to watch. But when that came out, I was a kid, so you were, like, lucky to see it, because you couldn't have the internet to go find Kids. You had to find someone who had the tape, and then we're all going to sit and watch it. And when I finally did see it, it was, like, uncomfortable. I was like, I probably shouldn't have watched this, you know? And this gave me that vibe. So they definitely did what they were trying to do. but I have to rate it on like a Kyle movie scale. So I'm going to say right in the middle, man, because I do think I liked so much of it. And then I think a lot of times I wish they would have done this differently or added more here or more of this character. So that's where I'm at.
Hey, say no more. I think that's brilliant. I love all of that. I'm going to go ahead and insert myself here next. I feel like this is one of those films that we probably could have talked about for another hour. I think there's a lot that kind of goes into the real life aspect of this film. And anytime that A24 crosses over into that real world side of things where you can really pull your own emotions, your own experiences, and put them into the film, you have a totally different viewing experience. Like this, for a slice of life film for me, was holy slice of life, like really truly a slice, not necessarily out of my life because I'm not a skater, but a sense that something that I could really relate to. It felt like something out of my own brain, my own psyche, kind of something out of my own living experience. It felt like something I wanted when I was growing up. I wanted friends, I wanted to be accepted, I wanted to be cool, I wanted all of these things, and this film did a great job of showing an inaccurate picture, but an imperfect picture of kind of what that experience would have been like for me. I think that the film had a great idea about themes of friendship and acceptance and, you know, family living and just the goals that you all see. And it really, for me, was something that I wanted to kind of, you know, really enjoy and I loved about this film. The music was great. The soundtrack was great. I thought the acting was well done. I was really blown away that Jonah Hill was able to kind of do all of this, not having any real experience being a writer or a director, only just having his experience in Hollywood, which truly proved to be obviously enough for this film. He did such a great job, especially we had talked about it earlier about using unknown actors, just guys off the street, and being able to teach a bunch of kids how to deliver a story that he had in his own head was just really well done. I didn't see a lot that I would change. I would definitely recommend to A24 fans, to fans of skateboarding, to fans of just slice of life movies in general. My only criticism probably comes in with some of the after fact that we've talked about as far as some of the decisions that Jonah Hill would have made. But I also can defend that kind of with art and, you know, parental permissions and things like that. I don't know. I'm rambling. It's going to go ahead and get an A-24 for me. It's still in the A category, but it's not quite like some of the best stuff we've ever seen, but it's quite good. So A24 for me, or A-24 for me, and I'm looking forward to the next one. So, Eric, you're up.
Yeah, although I didn't quite grow up like in the mid-90s, like I wasn't old enough to exactly remember that time in like 1995. I still grew up watching Jackass, Viva La Bam, playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 through 3 probably, and I know that like feeling, that kind of like skater aesthetic that is only true to that time. And Jonah Hill just like nailed it in this. Just like I was talking about earlier, the film grain that he used, the aspect ratio led to it, and also just like the feeling of the film between all the characters in it. It reminded me of like what it was like probably back in the 90s, even early 2000s when I was like old enough to remember how boys were back then. Definitely towards the end, it had me in my feels a lot. It made me feel something, and especially after that car crash scene and the very poignant like ending where Ray delivered that line, you take the hardest hits out of anyone. And, you know, putting aside that icky scene, this is almost a perfect film to me, so I can't give it an A+, but I think I will give it an A. And I maybe this was just one of those films that was made for me, and I really enjoy kind of the takes on masculinity that it gives, too. I think that looking at like how masculinity was back in the 90s, but like also like that kind of purveying toxic masculinity that like I think affects every generation of men. It really like hits hard in this film too, and I think Jonah Hill did a great job of commenting on that. So I think, you know, really good film. So A for me.
All right, Kelly, bring us home.
Okay, final review from me. I think this is one of my favorite soundtracks of all of the A24 movies we've watched, which is massive points for me. I love the subtle teenage boy emotions on all of our characters' faces. I already discussed like how much of the acting happens behind the eyes. I love that. I think that there's a great mix in cinematography between the art house kind of aesthetic and skater films themselves. That blend just like works together like a masterpiece. Works really well for me. Cole mentioned all the natural lighting. I've realized from the fact that this is a thing in this movie and all of the Eggers movies that I like, that's all natural lighting, and this does a lot for me as well, so I'm happy about that. So that's all just aesthetic wise, but this movie does what I say in a lot of my reviews, where I want a movie to make me care and make me have feelings. You can do that without it also being a movie that has kind of a therapeutic aspect, but this movie does both. So you already set the target, where to me I find this to be a very like therapeutic movie that doesn't shy away or glorify the uncomfortable and the ugly, but instead has commentary on it and works us through it and walks us through it and helps us process these kind of things. And in doing so invokes deep feeling and deep care from me as a viewer. So you set the target and then you hit it. So there's not much more that I would want to add on top of it. I don't think it's the very, very best movie, so I'm going to nick it a plus. With all of that said, it's an A24 from me.
All right, everyone, thank you for hanging with us on this a little bit lengthy of an episode. We appreciate you all. Go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave us a review, 5 stars, your favorite platform, all of that jazz. We appreciate you being a fan, and we'll catch you in the next one. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.